First, I had obviously it was a great weekend for the Mountaineers. Um, Big win and had a lot of recruits there, which was really nice, and a lot of neat comments from them for those that were here for the first time in Morgantown. Now we got a big challenge this week on the road. Kansas has got a really talented team. Have had an open week, so they've got 2 weeks to prepare. The new stadium, all that goes with it, with their Big 12 opener against us at home. So we got to, after Sunday, kind of turn the page from last week and get ready to play a good football team on Saturday night.
Rich, the run game was much more productive this past Saturday than the week before. So does all that credit go to Ty Edwards? Was your offensive line better? What was your analysis when you looked at the run game?
Ty helped. He ran hard and he's a big guy, ran physical. I thought we played pretty solidly up front. There was, we executed a little bit better in some of the run game. We thought we'd really be outnumbered, and we were at times, but Ty broke a few tackles. I thought Clay Ash ran pretty well as well. So I think it was a combination of all that.
Ty actually mentioned that he has to conquer anxiety and deals with anxiety while playing. Obviously, he had a great game and got over that. Were you aware that he deals with that at all?
No, they probably all have some form of anxiety.
He spoke openly about it.
So do I,
Yeah.
But I think he's. We've got people to help with that, but I think Ty is still getting in shape. I think the hardest thing with him was, I don't know how many times he carried it. I don't count, but he probably got a little tired there, and he's not used to that much of a workload. So I think as the season goes along, he'll get better and better shape.
But that environment with anxiety also, that couldn't have been easy either. So.
It was a great environment. Yeah, and I think sometimes we forget that even if you're an older player like Ty, you've been around a little bit, it's a lot. It's a lot on these guys. So that's just one reason, to your point, that we try to, I don't want to say put pressure on them in practice, but try to create as much of a practice and environment that asks for them to do their best all the time, so the games are second nature. But you're not going to duplicate a practice atmosphere like we saw Saturday. So that was pretty neat.
What do you see from Kansas defensively, and what do you know about DK McDonald?
Yeah, just been doing our research. Got some pro experience. They do a lot. They're very similar to us defensively, from the standpoint is that there's, some teams you'll see a certain base defense, mostly first, second down, third down. You'll see all the exotic stuff. You'll see a lot from these guys on every down. And so, again, with the 2 weeks, there's going to probably be some things that we hadn't seen that we got to be prepared for. Now, the only good part for us is that our defense does a lot of that too, so we saw a lot of different stuff in camp. But it's going to be – I know we're going to see some stuff Saturday that we probably hadn't seen in a while. We got to make sure we're ready for that.
Would you discuss the challenge of new coach, new system, and putting together a whole new offensive line? How difficult a task is that?
Bob, that's the hardest part of, one, our guys don't have a lot of game experience, particularly up front in the O-line, but they're all freshmen in the system. So sometimes I forget when we go on like, hey, if this is happening, we need to do this, or we make this adjustment. And I'm like, well, shoot, these guys have never made any adjustments yet. This is truly the first. They're like truly all freshmen, other than a couple guys that played for us at Jack State. They're all freshmen in the system. And so I sometimes have to tell myself and our offensive coaches, hey, we got to dial it back now. These guys they're not seasoned veterans in knowing this is the thing we do to fix that or fix this. And that's the hardest part when you're playing with so many new guys, in particular your first year. Year two is going to be a whole lot easier because you're going to have a handful of guys, maybe have not all of them, but you'll have a handful of guys that have been in it. And then year three, you're going to have more of it. And, by the time you get to year four or so, there are going to be many of your players grown up in your system, and that makes a difference, I think.
What's the origination of the 9 offensive lineman formation. Did you see that somewhere else, or did you invent
No,
it?
we did something similar to that the last couple years. We had 8, and I'm like, why have 8 when you can have 9? You know, and if one of the big fellas could run it, I'd have 10. You know, yeah, I actually asked those guys if any of them had played running back before, but yeah, they've been waiting to use that one. The big, we call it heavy. They like the heavy stuff.
Can you even catch? Can you swing somebody out?
Yeah, we're asking those questions too. You know, we want to. I don't know if how much we'll expand the heavy package, but it was key for us, I think, a couple times.
Do you have to declare those guys eligible when you?
No, not like the pros.
Not like the pros?
No, they can just put them out there. Now they have an ineligible number that you can't go out for a pass or anything like that. But you don't. In the NFL, you have to declare it.
The first 3 games, you've kind of mentioned that it's your time to really learn about your team. You feel like this past weekend you learned a lot about your team?
Yeah, I think for a multitude of reasons. One, you know, you're playing a game into overtime, and it's obviously a tremendous environment, a tight ball game, really loud, really intense, and so you find out a lot about that. But you don't want to make a judgment just on that either. You know, good or bad. You know, I think sometimes, you know, but every experience they have, I think, is going to help our guys grow, and it's going to help us learn. So, yeah, I'm glad we won. I'd rather learn from a win than from a loss, but you learn a lot from your losses too, and that's what we got to make sure. I got to make sure that we're prepared for that, because it's a long season. We're going to have a lot of tough ball games, and we got to try to learn as much as we can from about our guys every day.
After the game and Nico's performance and leading the comeback, you called him a winner. You mentioned that Nico Marco was a winner. What does it mean to you, and what goes into a player just being a quote-unquote winner? Because people look at stats, analyze sports today with analytics, things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe the stats don't always line up that Nico's elite, but he has won a lot of games when he's been in there.
Well, I just, from his attitude when, you know, typically, and I think I mentioned this after a game, when somebody's in there and then you take them out and put somebody else in, you know, they could go in the tank, or they could go and pout, or, you know, and not be engaged anymore in the game, whatever. And he didn't do that at all, of course. You know, he stayed engaged in the game, and when he got his opportunity to go back into the game, you know, he did a great job. So, you know, that tells you that he's made the right stuff. And other guys too. He wasn't the only guy we took out and put somebody else in. But the quarterback's the one you notice, right? So really proud how he stayed focused and made the most of his opportunity in the last 5 minutes.
Rich, on the heavy stuff, it's not as simple as bringing in like the next 4 guys on the offensive line, is it? Because I think you moved Chemo to the backfield, but the 2 guys on the right were totally new, right?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted Big Donovan, who's, like I said, you know, 2 hamburgers shy of 400. We wanted him to be in the lead spot, and Chemo's a really athletic guy, so he was playing in kind of the fullback position, I guess what you'd call it. So, but yeah, we may continue to look at different stuff with that. That was fun.
And then when you're bringing in so many players in different levels of football, how do you account for levels of competition and when they translate? And then it also differs position to position too, I would guess.
Well, I mean, the games aren't the first time these guys, if you're talking about guys that played at lower levels that playing here, the game's not the first time they've done that. They practice, you know, they practice, and, you know, for the first time from a guy that came from a Division II or 1AA school, maybe the first couple practices might seem a little fast for them, but if they're what we think they are, they'll adapt pretty quickly. And that's what the guys we have here. We have a handful of guys that were played at lower levels that adjusted pretty quickly. I had that, you know, last year. The best running back in Conference USA was a Division II guy that we had, and wound up running for well over 1,000 yards and being the first team all conference. So we make a judgment on that based on what we see, and we hope it matches up when they get here. And sometimes you miss, and sometimes you hit. We thought Ty was going to be a good player. He obviously got a late start, and he's still learning, but he showed some glimpses, of course, Saturday, what we thought he could be.
How were you
Tight ends made some big contributions late in the game and in overtime.
Yeah.
Were you holding a couple of those, like the down
No,
the tracks
I don't-
route, or was
no.
it?
No, I don't hold anything. Are you kidding me? Sometimes it doesn't, pop up in my mind that quickly. But Grayson is like Grayson Barnes. He's kind of more. Oh, I don't say more. He's kind of hybrid wide receiver, tight end. Our tight ends aren't the biggest guys, but they're all really athletic and they all can run, and so that's why we play that 11 personnel, 80% of the time. And Grayson played really well. He's got great ball skills. And he's a tough blocker, too. And we ask a lot of our tight ends.
How were you on first down? Was there improvement from the Ohio U game to the Pitt game?
I don't know what our percentage was. You guys know, I'm not a big stat guy, but I didn't even realize we had 28 first downs. That seemed, 25 is always the mark. I didn't realize overtime. I guess we got a couple. So I didn't realize we were at that many. So we must have been better at getting on our first down plays to continue. And I think we played 90, and the other stat was 90, I think it was 97 plays we played on offense, which to me is, if you get to 100 snaps, you're having some tempo. And even with all the unfortunate injuries that they had, multiple times during the game, you still had, some, isn't that remarkable? They still had some tempo when you got to play 97 plays. Maybe that's why there were so many injuries. They had to play 97 plays.
Were you confident Jamory is playing this week?
Jamory Robinson, you'll see him in action this weekend. I know he's excited. He's been waiting a long time.
What does he bring to the table, Rich?
Well, we knew when we signed, he's an athletic guy. He's got all the physical skills that you want. And we got to remember, he's like a freshman. This is his very first game and all that. And he's got to play within the system. But I'm sure he'll have a big week this week getting ready.
Rich, what do you think of I don't think anybody's asked you this, but what do you think of the one transfer portal window, 10 days? Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, I think it is a much better improvement. I think the portal, the two windows was too many, and then the length of the windows was too much, and it was really all coaches would, I think most of the coaches would tell you it was just crazy time. So I think shortening it, and it's getting closer to like the NFL free agent time period. I've always said this: as many rules that we could follow that kind of follow what the NFL does, because they're the most professional or best professional organization there is, and they've got a bunch of rules, and that's how they're so competitive every year. We need to follow that. And I think going to the one transfer portal window and concentrating that then is, that's not the only time you can sign them, but that's the only time you can get in, to me is going to make it a whole lot better from an organizational standpoint.
What can you say about your defense? They put pressure on Eli Holstein. You kind of saw a different.
Our
Eli
defense
Holstein.
from the start kept us in the game, with some turnovers and some stops against a pretty talented team, a pretty talented quarterback who can make a lot of throws, and we got enough pressure on them and it got them in some third and long situations, which is always good to have. So I thought our guys played really active, and we were down a couple guys too. We got the one targeting, and Chase was out, and so I love the way they battled.
Speaking of Chase injuries, what's his status on those that missed, and
Yeah,
any new ones?
Jacob Barrick is probably the new one we got concerned with. He got an ankle right there on toward the end of the game. Chase, we were hoping for him to be back. Preston Fox got hurt during the game, and he's kind of day-to-day right now. We'll wait and see what his situation is.
You got some about Katzer.
Yeah, Katzer is, I don't know if he'll be back yet total. We'll see what happens this week.
What do you know about Daniels with Kansas? What does he do well?
Yeah, he can run. He's really, you look at him, he's a well-built, strong-looking player, breaks a lot of tackles. You hate going against mobile quarterbacks like that. That's got experience. I mean, you could have the perfect defense call, and you got a guy right on him, and he shakes somebody or makes somebody miss and runs for a first down or extends a play, makes a big play. And so, that's the biggest concern you have when you play an athletic guy like that, is that you might have everything lined up right, but he makes a play and makes you look silly. So we got to be ready.
He's more athletic than Holstein, but what can you take? Can you take anything from the performance against?
I get. It is because he's so different than Holstein from the movement part and some of the stuff that they'll do with him. That it's not really apples and apples with that.
Does Kansas have a little bit of a different offensive identity this year, given they don't have Devin Neal?
I don't think so. No, they're still. I mean, they're very multiple offensively as well. I mean, they'll have some unbalanced stuff and some different stuff that we don't see. And again, the key for us is to be able to adjust early, because there'll be some stuff early in the game that they have not done this year or even last year because they have time to do it. So we've got to be really I think one of the key words is always going to be discipline, but we got to have great eye discipline, fundamental discipline, particularly in the early part of the game this weekend.
What do you think of Lifold's offense through the years and different coordinators?
What do I think of
Yeah,
it?
it just looks like you're kind of an engineer.
Yeah, he's, Lance is, kind of came up, we kind of came up the same way through the bus leagues, small schools and sometimes it's like being a high school coach. You got to do what you could do and be a little bit more creative in ways. And he's always been creative in the way some of the stuff they've done offensively. And he's won. I mean, he's won everywhere he's been. At some places that it's something to win at a place that always wins, or win at a place that doesn't always win. And he's won at places that didn't always win, and that's what's really impressive.
What's the preparation like for a quarterback like him, or like Pat White if those that had to go against him, when you can do everything right and they can still beat you?
Yeah, you hope you have somebody that can emulate that on your team and on your scout squad or something like that. I know some teams have put like a running back or receiver back there and instead of a real quarterback, just so they get a feel for it. And we'll do some different stuff this week to prepare for it. But we have a couple pretty mobile quarterbacks, so our guys have seen it in camp. But it is different when it's game speed and a couple weeks ago, we played a guy that was really athletic and gave us problems when scrambling around, extending plays, getting first downs, and we can't allow that to happen with this guy.
Rich, coaches like routine, but now you're traveling first time on a plane with the team, place you haven't been.
Yeah.
Anxiety for you with that, just getting out of the comfort
No,
zone?
heck, we
or-
got so many people to organize, that fix it. I just so what seat am I on the bus and what seat am I in a plane, and here's the itinerary. It's not like you obviously like to. I'd rather just bus an hour away and play somebody, rather than getting on the plane and doing all that. It's never easy to travel from that regard. But there's also when you do travel, everything's a little bit smaller. It's kind of easier sometimes to get focused in because it's just your little group, and you don't have recruits to host and do all other stuff. So there's some more time you could actually have with your players on away trips, believe it or not.
How difficult is it to get them to refocus and move forward?
Yeah, that's going to be the key. That's why we talked about it Sunday. They have Mondays off, so we saw some of them yesterday running around the building. But today, if there's any kind of hangover, whatever you want to call it, from the last game, I'll probably notice it early in practice and get that corrected as soon as we can, because our practice doesn't change. We're going to practice the same way with the same type of, I guess, hope, focus, and intensity.
Coach, in the last 2 games, you've gotten 4 picks on defense, but you guys haven't got any points off of that. Just trying to maximize those opportunities whenever you do get the turnover on offense. What do you need to do against a team like Kansas that they can score at any will?
Well, hell, it doesn't matter whether you get the ball via a turnover or a punt, whatever. You want to, if the turnovers, if you get great field positions, you better score, right? But it's not like you're trying any harder after a turnover than you do after a change of possession. It's just the whole key is to try to execute the best you can.
Rich, you said Preston was obviously banged up, so he didn't return punts or kickoffs. Why did you go to Bowie and Gallagher in those positions to fill in for him? What did you see from them?
Why wouldn't I?
Well, no, I'm just saying, what did you see from them? What makes them such good returners and put them in?
Oh, they're all well. The first thing to do if you're to be a punt returner or a kick returner is be able to catch it. You know, I always tell the punt returner, I said, catch it and get a first down. You know, that means just get vertical for 10 yards. But our guys, again, not gonna lie, they've since camp started, they've caught the ball really well. They've caught the ball well. Kickoffs, of course, and caught the ball well on punts. And Rodney's got great ball skills. We trust him with all the returns and catches. And Preston's really good too. He's been phenomenal with our punt catches. So the first thing is trust the guys that can catch it, and then if they can make somebody miss, that's great. But we want to make sure we can catch the ball.
According to what their notes, I guess their D-line is where the experience is. What do you see from their D-line?
Yeah, really athletic up front. And their interior D-line we've been really impressive. Really been impressed with how active they are, athletic they are up front, and so that's a big concern for us, that we got to be able to handle their interior D-line because they can move.
Okay, thank you, Coach.
Okay.